Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I see some of you are already active in the chat, which is great. While we allow everyone to join, we'll give us a minute or two before we jump into the content. But similar to last time, we started off with a poll since this is our coffee break series. And today, let's find out what's your favorite coffee pairing. You can take a minute to fill this out, and we'll just give everyone else a minute to join. Okay, it's 2 minutes after, so we'll get started. Let's see. Most people like donuts. I'm a nothing, just coffee.
Definitely like fruit more. Something sweet.
Fruit with your coffee?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and get started. This is the last of our 3-part series for this coffee break. So this has been all around, automation and action. And what we're going to be covering today is directly from your suggestions that you've been submitting to us throughout the series. So housekeeping standard, within the content section of the platform, you'll be able to see like resources that you can download or reference about today's topics. Definitely interact with us. I see you all already are. So live chat and polls. Any questions that you have throughout the webinar, we'll leave some time to address for them at the end. And then coffee is on us. So you'll receive a $10 digital gift card for joining today, and that'll be sent to you via email after the webinar. For our agenda, so we've covered, how to create the custom right-click tools, building some comment automations, and then today will be all about your suggestions in action. And we landed on temporarily adding a user to a local group, encrypting an unencrypted device, and then deleting a device for Active Directory and ConfigMan. There were a lot of good suggestions, though. So we'll also be keeping many of those in mind to potentially build as templates within the platform for you in the future. So about Recast, we're really here to empower IT teams at every endpoint and ultimately just, make admins' lives easier. There's 70,000 community users, which many of you are community tool users here today, and we're supporting over 60 million endpoints. So we understand, the importance of your job and the weight of it, and that, it can be extremely complex. And that's why, anything that we can automate on the back end for you or make it easier for you is what we're here for today. So today I have Courtney with me. So some of you may have seen her on some of our previous coffee break series or webinars. Lovepreet was in the first 2 of the series, and Courtney's actually Lovepreet's manager. She's equally as awesome. They're both great. So I'll let her introduce herself, and then we'll hop into the demos today.
Thanks, Haley. Yeah, Courtney, a solutions engineer. I've been at Recast for over 3 years now. And I've been in IT for even longer. Actually used the community tools before I started working here. So they have a special place in my heart. So I'll be doing the demo today. And with that, I will get my screen shared. All right. So to get us started, for those of you joining us for the first time, talking about our builder, our automation, and that is in Config Manager in the right-click tools. It is an enterprise feature. but it allows you to kind of customize, do things that maybe are repetitive, or maybe even build something that you give to someone that maybe not as technical or you don't want them to mess up, kind of take some of that human error potentially out of things. And you can access it by going to our Recast automation here. So we have builder and runner. And so pretty much you build it in builder, and then once you're done building it, you run it in runner. So we have some templates that Lovepreet talked about in some of the other webinars earlier this year or this month. And today I'm going to build some custom ones that have been suggested in the audience. So to create a new action, you just hit this big old plus button, and that starts off with your start node. And the start node is really just what you're kind of clicking on. And you can grab kind of like input parameters based on what you're clicked on. If it's a device, if it's a user, things like that. So we'll start off with kind of doing a temporary elevation, or maybe you want to add a user to a group temporarily. So we will go over to our system information. So we have a ton of actions over here to choose from. Sometimes I just go and look and see what kind of actions we have surrounding the different kind of categories, or maybe I'll search for things. So this bar up here is searchable. And so you can search for something specific. And then all you have to do is drag and drop that action over to this side. So we're going to add a user to a local group. So we'll create this arrow by going from the circle, the big rectangle here, and then filling out this information. So we have our member. I will fill that out in a second, actually. We have our user domain. So we're just going to put our domain in here. And then we have our group. So here you can add different groups. A few different options is, if you want a temporary kind of elevation, maybe you want the administrators group, or if you're not maybe a remote desktop user and just need to get remote onto a computer temporarily, you can add those in here. So I'm just going to do the administrators group for temporary elevation. And then for the member name, I want it to be dynamic. I don't want it to be constant, but I want to be able to input it. So to be able to do that, you need to go to your start node. And because usually we'll be clicking on the device, I want to add, a user to the local group. The username will come from what I want it to be added. So I'm going to add a string here. And if I click on the string, I have two options. So I could do a list if I want to be able to choose from two different options. But since it's a username, I just want to be able to type what I want. So I'm going to do a text box. And then I will put it a name so that, people will know what to add in there. So I want the username. I can add advanced features. So if it has to be a certain length, you can use this for like a password. You can reset passwords. So if you wanted to make sure it's not length of 0, have a minimum length or even a maximum length, things like that, you can add that here. So we will go back to the arrow, and instead of using a constant, we're going to actually map that parameter. So I'm going to map it to the start node, and I'm going to do it to that input parameter that I just created. So I will do that, create this arrow, but then I want to make sure I get it removed. So I don't want to be an administrator for longer than really necessary. So instead, I'm going to go to this builder action and put a little sleep in here. So we're going to make it take a nap for a little bit and create a sleep section. So we have it in seconds here. So you could, if you want to need it for like 20 minutes, or you want to do a max amount of time, you could put that in seconds. I'm just going to do 10 seconds for demonstration purposes, so we're not waiting around for 20 minutes when I run this. And then the next action we want is to be able to remove it. So then we'll find the remove, create the arrow again, map that parameter to the start node, put in our user domain, and our group is administrators. So now that I've completed this, I can name it something. So I'm just going to have it named webinar temp if I can type. There we go. So now that it's complete, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And we built our first action. So you can customize this based on kind of needs. You can add a list for like the local groups if you want them to be able to change between different groups. You can add all sorts of fun steps to this. Maybe you need to do something temporary. So when I want to run it, I would select my device. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what the administrator group looks like on this device. You can see here that I am not an administrator currently. I will close that out. And I will go ahead and run this on this device. We have our webinar here, and then I have our username. So I'm going to add my username. Go ahead and hit next, and I have the choice to run it immediately, or maybe if I'm, don't want to interrupt someone in this action, I want to run it immediately, but I could schedule it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run that immediately. Hit finish. Open this. I did type it in correctly. Of course, in practice, it works just fine. Let's see. Oh, I think I might have had a mistype in there. Yep, group name could not be found. So, good thing is, if you do accidentally mess up, you have the error here, so we can go ahead and get that fixed. So, we have our group. Administrators, capitalize that. And go ahead and save that. And then we'll try running it again. I did indeed spell it right, unless I mistyped it again. Oh. Of course, I just built this one. It's not finding the group. Let's try a different one. Let's do remote desktop. Put those in parentheses and change this as well. Oh boy. Go ahead and save that again and kick off the elevation. Now, before I run it, I will demonstrate in this other group that I'm also not in the remote desktop user group. And then go ahead and finish that. Close that and reopen. And there we have it. You can see my account got added when I spell things correctly. Here we go. And then we're going to wait a few seconds until that 10-second timer, and we can see it was successful. So I can go ahead and see I have also been removed now. Now you can temporarily elevate yourself, add yourself to another group, and do that from here. So we'll close that out. So that's kind of one way you can do things. We also have another suggestion, which was to encrypt a device if it's not encrypted, but then also back up the password. So we have a new action we're going to do. Add here. we're going to encrypt, do webinar, and we're going to encrypt a device that's not encrypted. Just do unencrypted device. All right. So for this action, we're going to go ahead and first, because I'm doing a little bit more invasive on this device, I'm going to actually do a ping beforehand. So there's a network setting here to ping the computer beforehand before it even starts running. This potentially might cause issues if your VPN does not allow pinging over your network, things like that. So this might be a redundant step, depending on your environment. But I sometimes like to add it just before it starts doing something a little bit more involved. So we're going to go here, and then we're going to go into BitLocker. And first we want to check our BitLocker status. So we want to make sure we're only running on devices that are currently not encrypted. So we will go ahead and create this arrow here. And before it moves on to that step, though, we want to make sure that we add a condition so that that ping comes back as successful. So we want it to be true. So only if it pings will it move on to the next step, which is to grab this BitLocker status. So then, we're gonna get creative here. So that way, we can go ahead and encrypt the volume. So the next step, you would want to check to see if it's encrypted. If not, move on and encrypt the volume. So here we have our drive letter. So I want to do C. The encryption method, we are going to do XTS AES 256 and it's an encryption method, but we only want it to go ahead and move on if our protection status is equal to unprotected. So if it's not protected, it'll go ahead and do the encryption. So this is where it gets potentially a little complicated. So it's going to take a little while to encrypt the volume. And so we kind of want it to just sleep until it's completely done. So we're going to add that sleep again in here. And then it will go ahead and check to see if it's what the BitLocker status is. So we'll have it sleep for, a certain amount of time, which is maybe we'll do like 20 minutes. So I'll do 1,200 seconds. And then we're going to go ahead and check that BitLocker status again. So then here we're going to have a condition that's actually going to be, don't need a condition on this one. We need it on the next one. So we're just going to have it sleep, check the BitLocker status, and then we're going to go ahead and have it back up the key protector to AD, or you can do Azure AD or Enter ID there as well. So then we're going to go ahead and back it up. But we only want to back it up if it's actually done and the encryption is at 100%. So we'll add a condition here that says our encryption percentage, and we're going to equal to 100%. So only if it's actually 100% do we want it to go ahead and back up, back that key up. It gives time to encrypt and check it. But maybe we don't, maybe it doesn't take 20 minutes, maybe it takes a little longer. So we can actually have it split. So we're going to add another sleep in here and branch it off from this BitLocker status. So if it is done encrypting and it's at 100%, it will back up that key. If not, we're going to have it a condition here that says the encryption percentage is less than 100%. So if it's less than 100%, it will go ahead and sleep for a little bit longer. We'll add another maybe 20 minutes, maybe you want to do 30. And then it's going to check that BitLocker status again. So what we're trying to do is make sure that, one, we don't loop anything, because if we just kept kind of pointing the arrows around, it would just, potentially keep checking if in case something went wrong. So we just want it to have safety steps so that it does what we want to do with the right conditions. So if it's 100%, backs up the key. If not, it will sleep, and then it will check it again, the BitLocker status, and we can have it back up that key, but only if the encryption percentage is at 100%. So we could go and add more if we wanted to maybe sleep again and then try again, or you can add as many kind of sleep cycles as you think might, the average amount of time it would take to encrypt. And you can get those added in here. So this was one that was recommended from, I think, the last webinar or the webinar before that. And that would allow you to back up that key after it's been encrypted. If you needed to, you could add like a decrypt if it was encrypted incorrectly, or maybe you just want to force after it's done encrypting, force it to recover, things like that. You can add all sorts of fun options over here. And then at any point, if you build an action and you only want some people to use it, but not everyone, or maybe it's only for yourself, we have permissions in our Recast management server that we can actually set for builder actions. So once you build it, you can have specific permissions for each builder action that has been created. Oops, that one's BitLocker. There we go. So these are all the ones that we have currently, and I could specifically not allow certain people to use those builder actions that maybe I've created. So something like this, I might not want everyone to be able to encrypt devices in here. And then for our last option, our last builder action, go ahead and save that, was actually submitted in our Discord. So we're in Discord, and someone was trying to delete their devices from Active Directory config manager, and they also wanted to add Qualys in there. We don't have a specific Qualys action, but I will kind of show you how one way you could potentially do that. So we're going to go in here and we will get we're going to go to Active Directory. So we'll just delete it from Active Directory first. And we need to be able to get the computer name. So we're going to actually use split computer name first. And then grab the FQDN from the start node. And then we're going to go ahead and use the delete account. So the plugin shows Active Directory, and this one is deleting account. So it's going to delete the account from Active Directory specifically. And so we're going to map the split computer name here and map that account to the computer name, and then the domain is already getting split from that previous action. And then we want to go ahead and delete it from config manager. So we'll go ahead and grab delete device, and this is from config manager itself. So it's in the config manager server plugin. And then it will grab all the information already from that start node. So that way I could run this on, any computer that is maybe hasn't been logged into in a while. It would delete it from Active Directory and config manager. But if I had, maybe another system, one that we don't have natively in here, we can actually use our PowerShell script block. So I could add a PowerShell script block in here and then delete it from whatever other systems I want. So you would add your script in here. If you need to add any input parameters, you can map them to the start node. You can add that PowerShell script in here to get it out of those other systems. So that is one way you could go ahead and delete all those and then run that on devices. And it also pairs nicely with one of our dashboards, which is our Active Directory cleanup, because it shows what when's the last time someone logged in. So you can quickly see the last logon timestamp here. So if I wanted to, I could see all the devices that haven't maybe been logged into in a while, and I don't need them anymore. Maybe they're just sitting around in the systems, and I could go ahead and run that automation on these devices in our environment, which I'm not going to do in this webinar. But those are some of our suggestions. If you guys have more, you can always submit more. We can see if we can get them created as like templates, or and see what kind of ideas everyone has. But that is it for the customized automation actions. Back to you, Haley.
Thanks, Courtney. So we got a lot of great questions in the chat. I'll pop up this poll now and leave it up while we answer some of those questions. So if you'd like to see more about like right-click tools and Builder Runner and making your everyday work easier, let us know. We can reach out to you and set up a personalized demo for you so we can talk about some of the things specific to your environment. So while we leave that up, I'll pull up some of the questions for you, Courtney, and you can see them in the chat too. John asked, would it still require a log off or log on to update the, how do you pronounce that? Kerberos keys or domain user being added for temp admin rights?
So usually I would use that when I wasn't already logged in. So it depends on, I happen to already be logged into that machine, but theoretically I would use it when I'm not logged in, because I can't either if I'm not an admin, I'm not a remote desktop user. So it wouldn't necessarily apply because it's not logged in yet.
Next one was from Chris. Is there a way to reorder actions without deleting and recreating them?
Right now, there is not. It is in the order, but I think we have a feature request out there. So there is a feature request page. If you guys have any ideas, if you see other people's ideas, vote for them. It helps us prioritize, make sure we get the features that you guys want. So go ahead and vote for those.
Cool. And then from Scott, is there an action like wait for status where it'll retry every X amount of seconds and then time out after Y amount of times, or the total of seconds?
There's not a wait for status. There's that sleep where it would sleep, but you would have to create the, conditions on which you want it to wait for. And then it would try the next time. And that way you don't have it accidentally loop.
And then from George, can you export that BitLocker right-click tool you're building for us to import?
Here. That is a great question. I should be able to export it. We'll see if we can get it added to our webpage. See if we can get those added at our templates.
Yeah, I believe one of the resources within the console is some of those pre-built templates. And then we're continually adding templates and those new Lego pieces, as Lovepreet described them, to the platform. So we appreciate all of your suggestions. Like you mentioned, 2 of these came from the survey. One of them actually came from our Discord. I was going to link our Discord channel down here if you're not in it already. It's within the Win admins, and then you'll see Recast software. So we launched that a few months back, and it's growing. It's pretty active, but we do look to that for things like these webinars. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this poll if anyone else wants to respond. And our next coffee break series. So we're always going to keep these technical. They're going to be very, demo focused. They're often going to be based off of your feedback and suggestions. We'll typically do them in 3 parts, similar to how we did this series, 20 to 30 minutes long. Our next one coming up for July and August, it's going to be around the health and performance of your IT environment. So we're kind of going along with the Olympics theme right now, and we're going to be creating a health assessment that you can take and be able to identify vulnerabilities and risks, whether it's around patching, OS updates, lapse, BitLocker, encryption, privilege, and then we'll be discussing how to create that healthier environment within our next series. So be on the lookout for that. Appreciate your suggestions and your participation today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you all, and be on the lookout in your email for your gift card. Thank you.
Thank you.